Hello. Our topic for today is an island. It's called Sable Island. But this island is known by another name as well, the graveyard of the Atlantic. So there must be something special about this island to have earned such a name. Let's find out what that special feature is. First, let's see where this island is located. As I mentioned earlier, it's in the Atlantic. It's situated in the North Atlantic. It is located in the Atlantic, about 100 miles or roughly 160 kilometers off the coast of Nova Scotia, a province of Canada. The most remarkable feature of this island is its shape. The island has a crescent shape, so the total length of this island is about 40 kilometers, but its width is only about 1.5 kilometers. So Sable Island is a curved island that is 1.5 kilometers wide and 40 kilometers long. Its total area is 34 square kilometers. It's just a sandbar. It doesn't have any of the usual features of a typical island. It's just a sandbar. In other words, Sable Island is a desert-like island with only a few patches of grass. It was first discovered and reported around the 1500s, and that too by the Portuguese. It was the Portuguese who first arrived in this area at that time. Several of their captains reported the existence of such an island here. But that wasn't the real problem. This island and its surroundings are always windy, foggy, and covered in thick mist. Because of this, many sailors didn't even know that this island existed there. That's why so many shipwrecks have happened here. In total, around 350 shipwrecks have been reported. The real question is how and why so many shipwrecks happened here. This was mainly because of the thick fog, huge waves, and the fact that people simply didn't know the island was there during that time period. So during that era, shipwrecks kept happening one after another in this area. Later on, people started marking this place on maps. People started recording that there was a crescent-shaped island here. But still, shipwrecks kept happening again and again. So by the 1800s, the Canadian government set up a station here. It was called the Nova Scotia Station. They brought food and a few people there. Then they built a lighthouse. And even now, that lighthouse is still here. But when there's heavy fog, you can't see anything. Still, whenever there was a chance, they could rescue people. That was the idea for the people stationed here. After they did this, the number of accidents here started to decrease significantly. So now, what's here is a Canadian weather station, a meteorological observation center. The old rescue station was converted into a weather station, and that's how it operates now. Even up until the 1990s, accidents still happened here. There were minor accidents as well. But now, it's an area where such incidents are almost non-existent. Still, it's known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. So, what's special about this island? The sandbank we mentioned is just a sand dune with only grass growing there. But if you ask what makes it unique, right now there are over 500 horses, a special breed of horses, living there. There are more than 500 of them, and they're called the Sable Island horses. How these horses ended up here is still a big mystery. None of this is certain, because like in the early days, things were different back then. At that time, it's possible that horses on ships escaped and made their way here, and then survived and multiplied. But if you ask what's really special, after that, even though the government and private individuals tried to introduce goats, rabbits, and other animals to live here, none of them managed to survive. Only these horses have thrived, grazing on the grass. There are 3 or 4 freshwater ponds here. Even though these ponds contain fresh water, they're a little more salt to taste. Surviving all this, only the horses we're talking about now are left there. Right now, there are about 500 horses. But it's possible that sailors from long ago brought these horses here. That used to be a practice back then. Once they discovered isolated islands, some knowledgeable captains would leave a few animals on the island so that if anyone ever needed to survive there, they'd have something to live on. But this has, to some extent, damaged the ecosystem. Still, to save human lives, if something ever happened and people ended up stranded on the island, they could kill these horses or use them, or kill goats. That was their intention, to have something there for people to use if needed. So, These horses might be the ones that were left behind like that. Now, if we want to see the overall structure of the island, Google Street View has marked a few areas in the middle of the island. So, if you go to Google Street View and use that button, you can safely take a virtual tour of the island from anywhere in the world. But if you do, you'll see there's nothing much, just grass and the sand I mentioned earlier. That's what makes this place unique. If you sail a ship straight from Europe, where Portugal and Spain are, towards the Canadian coast, this island is right along that route. That's exactly why. Because it was such a busy sea route, there have been more than 350 shipwrecks here. Even now, in many parts of the island, you can still find remnants of those old shipwrecks. According to reports, many people have ended up here over the years, and most of them died right there due to lack of water and food. Some managed to survive, but later on, ships that came by rescued and took away some of the survivors. So, this island really became a kind of graveyard. That's why today we call this island the Graveyard of the Atlantic. In an effort to save and green up the island, the Canadian government, I think it was in the 1960s, brought around 1,000 trees here. This was done in hopes that things would change here somehow. But except for one tree, a pine tree that has managed to survive and grow all these years, all the other trees died. So now, this tall guy standing here is special. He's the only one that managed to make it on this island. Except for that one lone tree, everything else here is just grass, a few fruits, about 500 horses, and this weather station. That's all that's on this island now. If you ask what the main problem is right now, it's global warming. As a result, sea levels are rising. So this so-called sandpaper, what we call Sable Island, is basically a sandbank, a small island that's beautiful in its own way. Because of that, researchers believe that in the coming years, all three of these islands might completely disappear. So, I'll be back again with more interesting stories in the history of islands like this. Thank you, and goodbye.